This is Larry the Barber Man, and today I am at Danny & Co.'s Barbers in Oldham with Danny Robinson. Danny Robinson is an award-winning barber with the Hairdressing Federation as Young Fed or competition winner. He's also the European Artistic Ambassador for the Oster Clipper Company and a multiple barber shop owner. And today I'm going to do a catch-up interview. I did interview Danny 2 years ago, and when going over it today I realised that the interview was 4 minutes, which must be the shortest interview ever with Larry the Barber Man. So today we're going to do a comprehensive interview with Danny and get the lowdown on his life and how his life has changed over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
so
great.
Danny, thank you for inviting me back into your shop.
Oh, anytime, mate. Anytime.
Intrigued to hear your story. From last time, I remember that you was brought up with a young mother. You basically rose from nothing to now achieving all those things I introduced you at the beginning. Just talk me through where you were at the beginning and how you worked your way into barbering and ultimately to the success you are today.
So basically I'm from a single parent background. My mum brought me up from being 15 years old on her own. I've never met my dad, I don't know him. So from there and throughout school, barbering was something that I never really wanted to do. I went into being a professional TV actor from leaving school. I went to Manchester City Centre and studied at a performing arts school. From there I landed at a really successful acting agent called Lime. I was with them for years. I've got loads of TV credits. I was on Shameless, Spooks. I've worked with Lenny James. I've worked with some amazing, what are now Hollywood actors. But I just found that I lost a bit of momentum with it. I fell into going out, and you can quickly be the flavour of the month in acting, and very quickly someone younger, better looking, more eager will take your place really, really quickly. It's a really fickle industry, and 1 minute you're on top and the next minute you're doing auditions for scrap roles, really. And that's kind of what happened. I had a really good run. So from there, it was my mum who pushed me into getting a fallback job instead of waiting for the phone for auditions. And she always noticed from a young age that I'd always messed around with my hair, putting lines in my eyebrows and tram lines and designer stubble. And so she said, why don't you pursue a career in barbering? So that's what I did. I fell into women's hairdressing first, but I'm very, probably one of the good words is I'm quite chavvy. So for me to cut a woman's hair didn't work at all. The women was absolutely scared to death of someone stood in a Lacoste tracksuit in front of them with a pair of scissors. I think they thought I was going to stab them. So the salon that I was in at the time pushed me to more the men's side of it, and I actually really liked it. I had things in common when I was speaking to the guys about, going out and boxing and stuff like that. So it kind of progressed really quickly that I liked doing men's hair. And from there, just literally went from shop to shop, broke away from working in Manchester City Centre. I kind of found the money wasn't overly great working for other people on a salary in a city centre. You lined other people's pockets. So I then went to work as a self-employed rent-a-chair basis at a local shop in Oldham, and I stayed there for 5 years and kind of learnt my trade there, really. My old boss showed me the ropes business-wise, and me being me, I've always had to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. I think I have a little bit of a reputation in the barbering industry as being a little bit egotistical, a bit cutthroat. I say what I think, I don't hold anything back. But that's because of my background. I've had to learn to fight, to stand out. I've not had the most perfect upbringing. So I've always been on the back foot to learn to stand up for myself. I've had to be like that. So for then to start with the barbering, I was the same really, and I realised that, look, I've been working at this shop for 5 years. I'm lining the guy who owns its pockets. I'm kind of more or less running the shop when he's not here. Half the customers that are coming in are all coming in for me. I can do this myself. So from there, I managed to find this shop, and I got this shop really cheap because there was a gas explosion nearby, and it blew a lot of the houses up in the surrounding area at the back, and this shop was quite run down. So I managed to get it extremely cheap. So I thought, well, the guy who I work for is taking more money off my chair rent than what this shop's costing me. So wouldn't it be a good idea to just move it into a shop? So I did that, and God, I suppose you could say the rest is history, really. It just rocketed off.
Who was your main mentor, would you say, back then?
The person who I looked up to a lot at the time would have been A.D. Phelan, who at the time was doing David Beckham's hair. He was everywhere at that period. He was all over the TV. David Beckham had a different haircut every single month, and you know, he was the probably the most famous man in the world at that time, and everyone looked at all his different haircuts, and that really like intrigued me to be like, wow, men's barbering is cool. There isn't a stigma or persona around it that it's at the time, years ago when I first got into barbering, it was kind of a gay thing to do, you know, and very quickly that changed, and that changed through Instagram, and now it's probably tattooing, footballer and barbering is probably one of the coolest things you can do, you know. We all have a laugh in the shop, we all wear Stone Island, we all go out together at the weekend, we're all like friends. Being in this shop is not a job. I get paid, basically. It's like having your hair cut in someone's living room. We just have a crack all day long. And yeah, it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I've got a really good team around me at the minute. And from there, it's just built up and up and up.
Okay, so, you know, at the beginning, I read out quite a lot of accolades of what you've actually achieved. Would it be fair to say that winning the Men's Hairdressing Federation Young's Fed Award was a key turning point to your success?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I kind of stumbled across the Men's Hairdressing Federation through social media, through Facebook. I remember finding a guy called Joe Sloan and scrolling through some of his pictures and his work, and he was such a large character, and I thought, wow, this guy looks really cool. He's from Essex. And I was keeping an eye on him. I was keeping an eye on Josh LaMonica. I'd come across Simon Kibler. And I saw that the Men's Hairdressing Federation had put a competition together, which you had to submit 4 photos, and the winner would be taken on an artistic team and then pushed upon every stage throughout the UK. So at the time, I entered that, and I entered Simon Shaw's Search for a Star barber competition. And I did that with a customer that comes in this shop, Abdul. So at the time, I saw, because I'm a bit of a tech geek really, I'm always iPads and cameras and the latest computers and laptops, and I kind of figured out that iPhone pictures could only get you so far. So I went out and bought a high-end DSLR Canon camera and started taking pictures for my Instagram and Facebook account with a high-end camera, 50mm 1.4 lens, and it just instantly 2 to 3 years ago, not now, popped out because everyone was just using iPhones, and it looked so professional. It looked like I'd got a photographer in to take the pictures every time. And this got my work noticed pretty quickly. So when I went to send them into the competitions, now it's the norm, but at the time it wasn't, and it got me seen very quickly. And yeah, I got to the final of the Simon Shaw Search for a Star, and Joe Sloan just randomly saw a picture that I posted on Facebook and started contacting me via social media, and he said, if you're at Salon International, why don't you come over, if you're there with Simon Shaw, to come and speak to us on the stand? Which I did. So I entered the competition with Abdul, with Simon Shaw, and it went amazing. Unfortunately, I didn't win. And then Adam came over, and I totally reworked Abdul's hair and did a total different look on a different stand. I blew it a different way. I took the fade higher. I put a surgical parting line like what Ryan Cullen does. I did that 3 years ago in the side of his head, completely mixed it up. And they was like, wow, that's unreal. And because I'd come from an acting background, give me a microphone and I won't shut up. I'd strip off naked on stage and it wouldn't bother me. So I just they was like, wow, who's this young kid from Manchester doing this? And I had a crowd of people around me. I wasn't nervous, I was dicking about. And Adam and Joe saw this and had gone off, which I didn't know, and had a chat about me saying like, where is this kid? Where's he come from? And then Adam gave me a business card. So me being me, I left the business card at home, totally forgot about it. Christmas went by. And then they messaged me to say, can you come down and replicate that haircut to camera?
I remember that. That's when I met you in
Yeah, exactly. That's where we met for the very first time. So I went to Essex and I cut it to camera because they wanted to see if I could do it the same as the pictures. And they filmed it. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call saying they'd already picked the winners for the Young Feds, which was Josh LaMonica, Simon Kibler, Richie Martin and Kai Wilson. Kai then took on a role, I think, with Babyliss and couldn't commit to the dates through contractual reasons. So then there was a gap. There was only 3. So they needed to fill the void. And I got the phone call saying, you're on the Feds, which was just surreal at the time. Absolutely surreal. Because I'd literally had this little idea of opening up this barbershop to then 2 months later being pushed on stage at Weller Studios in London in front of past British Hairdresser of the Year award winners. You know, Errol Douglas was presenting it and I was just shaking with fear more than any acting job I'd ever done. And I was just like, this is crazy, absolutely crazy.
Just from one haircut.
Yeah,
so
just from one haircut.
In some respects, you owe your life to young Abdul.
Yeah, I do. And every time he comes in, we treat him with the most utmost respect. You know, we give him discounted haircuts. And he kind of came with his own little celebrity around here, really. Apparently, he was at school at the time, and everyone was like, wow, there's Abdul, he's all over Instagram, which was cool for him in some ways. I think it helped him get the girls.
And also, talking about, whilst on the subject of Abdul, and that cut, the Bombay Pompadour.
Yeah.
That was actually a haircut that you created.
Yeah,
wasn't it? That was that you created that and named it, and that is your haircut.
Yeah, of course.
And it got, what is it? Had how many hashtags or?
Oh mate, there's so many, thousands upon thousands. It was at the time 2 to 3 years ago. That was everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And all I did was I edited it with a black and white filter. To make it even more stand out, and I took it side on and his jaw just looked amazing and the pomp was seamless. This is well before all the scoring stuff blew up and everyone was just like, wow. And it's just a little shop in Oldham, and I was just probably ahead of my time. That's all it was. I quickly did it because now it's just the norm. Now everyone has a high-end camera, everyone has these mega expensive phones, everyone's into Photoshop, everyone now is like a graphic designer as well as a barber. But at the time I just quickly cottoned onto it. I've always had a keen eye for technology and being ahead of the game sometimes, I would say.
Definitely set the standard for people to follow. They know you can't just take, if you're just going to take photos on the iPhone stood up above on top of the subject's heads, you're going to get absolutely nowhere. Okay, so again, let's kind of leave social media and let's talk festivals. As I understand it, you cut at quite a lot of high profile, prestigious festivals. Tell me some of the festivals that you've cut out, and obviously with big festivals there must be big stars. Yeah,
of course. So Richie Martin, who I got really close with on the Feds at the time, he was working a lot with Kevin Murphy. And we got Kevin Murphy as a brand in here. And Kevin Murphy was working in the festivals at the time. They had tents to do their hair backstage for for like the celebrities basically. So not the punters, it was backstage for the artists, the DJs. So Richie kind of introduced me to a few contacts, and then from there, me being me, I kind of figured out, well, who ran it and stuff like that, and got speaking to them. And then from there, it just snowballed really. I did it with Richie. We did Creamfields, which was in Liverpool, which was 2 years ago. At the time, Avicii was there, Tiesto, some of the biggest DJ names in the world, and I was stood as close as I am to you with them, speaking to them, having a drink with them. I got to cut a DJ's hair called Top Talk, which he was supporting Avicii at the time. I give him a haircut. He was from Sweden. He told me he'd never had a haircut like it in his life. He couldn't do skin fades over in Sweden really. And then from there, he flew me out to Amsterdam to go and cut his hair when he was doing a gig over there. And then I went to go and work for Cutthroat and Coffee. So then the year after, Siobhan and I became really good friends. And she invited me back, but on a bigger scale. She invited me to come and do Creamfields. She invited me to V-Fest. And it was just literally jaw-dropping. I was, you know, the likes of Justin Bieber was there. You had...
Did you cut Justin's hair?
No, I think he's got his own stylist, yeah. But cutting-wise, you know, I got to line. Craig David was there. Tiny Temper was there. We had Stormzy. Anyone who you could think of at the time. I got to do Muse, the guy from the indie band, the international drum and bass DJ Wilkinson. I cut his hair, and I just had to keep pinching myself over and over and over again that I'm literally stood meters away from the likes of massive A-list celebrities. You know, you can't get any higher, and you know, literally from here to say, you know, where Josh is with Brier's whole security team is like where Justin Bieber is. It's just mad. So the girls' side of it, they did Sia's hair. Sia is a massive international star. She invited us on stage with her at the side. It just was incredible.
All because of Abdul and Adam.
All of it, mate. Honestly, and I'm just a little, you know what I mean. I'm just a tiny barber shop in Oldham, and you know, there's not a moment that I don't pinch myself, and I do count my blessings. And a lot of people who meet me who don't actually know me can say that I do come across maybe not inapproachable, but you know, like a bit. But that is because of how I am and my upbringing, and anyone knows who contacts me via social media or knows me personally. I do contact people, I try and help people, I help people who set up businesses. I am a really nice, approachable guy, but it's just because... What's going on? Exactly, you know, I've got kids, I run multiple businesses, you know, I can look inapproachable sometimes, and it's just the way I am. I'm from Manchester, you know what I mean. I don't welcome people with open arms. That's just my character. I am who I am.
So for everybody, if you see Danny, just break him in slowly, and he'll give you his heart. So also, Danny, you've got a gig, a really big gig with Oster. You're the European artistic ambassador.
Yeah.
Keen to know how you got this job, because these are kind of coveted jobs that everybody would like. How did you get that job, or what did you have to do to get that job?
So when I first got the barber shop, I knew that I wasn't the greatest barber because I've been doing haircuts that was £5 back and sides. So I needed to up my game. So I did a Sassoon's course and I did an American Crew course. When I did the American Crew course, American Crew are known for using Oster 97s. They don't use any other clippers. They have a detachable #1 blade and a Matador pivot comb, large clipper comb, and that's all they work to create the shape. So I bought a pair, as you would do. I bought a pair, absolutely loved them. Was like, what is this machine? It's probably one of the greatest machines I've ever held. The build quality was unbelievable, and I absolutely worked them to death. I did, and I didn't know that you had to change the carbon fibre.
Brushes.
Yeah, that go in between. I didn't know. I thought they broke. found in the box where you'd send them back to. Sent them up back over to Ireland, which is Denman, the distributor, and via emails and phone calls, I got talking to a lady called Maria Stafford, who was a really unbelievably nice lady. When I spoke to her, I was like, wow, this woman's really, really nice. And she'd be like, oh, you know, hello, Danny. I can't do an Irish accent, but, and she was lovely, absolutely lovely. And then from there, we got speaking, and I randomly sent her an email with pictures of my work and the achievements and my shop layout. And she sent me a message back kind of saying, like, wow, type of thing. I said, I'm a massive believer in Oster products. I've clocked that you don't really have anyone who represents you, apart from Ian Harold, who is the American crew, like, educator in the UK.
In Liverpool.
In Liverpool, yeah.
Attitude.
Yeah. So they didn't really have anyone else who was pushing it over here. A lot of old school barbers would use them, but no new school was coming through using them. So I kind of said, you know, there's a gap in the market here. So she said, when you're at Pro Hair next, come over to the Denman stand and speak to us, which I did. And I was on stage with the fellowship and the fellowship stage with the young feds, and I had a pair of Pro Powers and did the whole haircut, and she was watching at the side, and she came over and she said, like, terrific, fantastic, jump on here now and do a haircut with the tools, which I did, and it just progressed and progressed and progressed. And then I did Salon International for them, Barber Connect. But what people don't realise is when I did all these shows, I wasn't getting paid for any of this. I did this out of the goodness of my own heart. You know, it didn't financially motivate me to do it. I genuinely believed in the Oster brand, and that's what they saw. You know, constantly be hashtagging it. I'd be doing videos. I'd be doing artistic pictures holding a pair of the clippers. And I helped them bring the brand awareness, you know, over to the UK as much as I personally possibly could. And it led from there. And then Alexander over in Germany got wind of it, and what they used to do is fly an amazing barber called Chris Vaughan from Beverly Hills over to the UK to cut hair for Oster. And then the next thing I knew, I'm stood on stage with him, and we're working together, and he's doing a haircut and I'm doing a haircut, and we're bouncing off each other, and you know, he'd do an hour, I'd do an hour, and it literally just led from there. And I've been for meals with them. They invite me whenever they're over in the UK. And then it started to get serious. They was asking me to help develop new clippers. They was asking me feedback, to where it's got now, where, you know, I'm their European ambassador. You know, now I do get paid for certain jobs. They help me with, you know, with product development, feedback. We're starting YouTube channels, doing tutorials with it, and it just snowballed all through one bollocksy, because you had to have big bollocks to send that, and that's all I did. It could have worked, it could have not. They could have said, oh, brilliant pictures. That's it.
You know, Oster need someone like you to get the word out about Oster, because they are an amazing clipper. I had an interview with Chink the Barber, Famos's right-hand man, on Thursday night about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know how we got into the subject, but he told me that he'd done 22 haircuts a day in 9 hours. I'm like, how can you do 22 haircuts a day in 9 hours?
Wow.
You know what he said, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oster 76 over there,
of course,
97, and then I was just thinking to myself, I go into barber shops and maybe 1 in 70 barbers
I've got them.
Which is insane. And if you can see that Chink the Barber is doing 22 haircuts, and I was scratching my head thinking why, and he said that he's got that, it kind of adds up. So
yeah, because they're a really good workhorse clipper. You know, they're built to last. If you want to remove bulk and hair density very quickly, you snap a detachable number 2 blade, and you know, Josh is with me here now, we can whiz through that in no time at all. And I introduced Josh, who works with me, and my other staff members, to these clippers, and at first they hold them like it's a giant dildo. Like, what is this in my hand? And you're like, wow, I don't like it. Get it away from me. But then the more you get to use it, you're like, this is amazing. Where's this been my whole life? And that's what I did. And the majority of my fades and the transitions through it is all down to those detachable clippers, because you've got to imagine the metal blades that they don't move as were, you know, conventional taper lever ones, and you're snapping a plastic guard on. You push that with your finger and you can move and manipulate it.
And not only that, it flattens, the plastic flattens the hair, so you've got to go over it 2 times, whereas when you're going with straight metal, it captures the hair and cleans it, cuts and gives you a nice
the key texture. Word you've just said there is clean. Yeah. They're clean cuts with them. And you've got to imagine that, you know, you can snap a 50 blade on, and it, you know, you can do necklines with it, you can edge with it. It's your all-in-one clipper basically. Every single barbershop should have one. They really should.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I once heard, before we go on to the next point, one barber said, an American guy, prominent barber, said that if he went into another barber shop apart from his own, and he looked on the wall or the tool set and he didn't see a 76 in Americans in case and 97 in our case, he would walk the
You go.
Take them seriously.
Well, you've got to imagine that with Wolf of Wall Street, the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, there's a bit in there where they're in the office and they shave a girl's head and they give her 10 grand. Yeah. What clippers do they use? Oster 90s, well, Oster
76.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually it's a Model 10 because it's black.
Yeah, to shave her hair. You know, and that's an iconic scene. Yeah. And you know, it's a massive brand in America. Why not here? And that's
You're going to do that?
Yeah, hopefully.
And I'm just talking on tools before I go on. I'm looking over there and you've got the QS's, Dan's scissors. Tell me a little bit about those before we move on.
Yeah, so obviously I'm always going to be a little bit biased with Oster, you know, being their ambassador. And I was looking for a really good scissor, a really good scissor to go hand in hand with the Oster clippers. And I tried loads of different brands, which I did like, but nothing I've ever stuck to, ever. I've always mixed and matched and just not cared about and, you know, thrown them on the side when I'd finished with them. And then Dan got in contact with me and he came over to speak to me. And I know he went over to speak to Alan at Ruger and a few other guys just to, you know, drum up awareness for them. And I used them in the shop and I was like, wow, I do like these are cool. And then we got speaking more and more like you do over social media. And then he sent me a pair. And I used them, and I remember looking at Josh, and Josh is like, you know, are they any good? And I was like, mate, these are the dog's bollocks, and I'm not just saying it because I'm the type of guy. If they were shit, I would say that they were shit. And yeah, they was great, mate. Absolutely great. I love them. Absolutely love them as a brand that I do. Yeah.
And he's passionate as well about his scissors.
Yeah.
The education. Okay, Danny. So I'm keen to know what exactly is it that you do with the young feds?
So there's 4 of us collectively. 2 of the members have changed over the years. You know, we've had Simon Kibler, Richie Martin. You know, a lot of them have other work commitments. You know, they're busy in the shop. You know, some of them are shop owners. And it is exhausting travelling, doing all the shows. So basically, collectively, we go to every major hair show in the UK, which will be like Salon International, Barber Connect. We're going over to one in Ireland. We do independent shows, and we just educate really collectively between us all. We all do something different. Josh, as everyone knows who Josh LaMonica is, literally worldwide famous at the minute, is just kind of the head one at the minute. You've got Tarek Howes, you know, a really good friend of mine, who is Afro Barber of the Year at the minute. He's just amazing, mate. His fades are nothing like anything I've ever seen. I would say I'm a good all-rounder. You know, I've got a big mouth. I can bring the crowds in. I can speak for us all. And then you've got the newest member, which is Paul Mac Special, what we was missing really with, you know, his creative colours. He can do patterns. He's you know, he's from Ireland, so it broadens it out. He's amazing. And you know, I've got to mention Simon Kibler, who was phenomenal at his patterns. You know, Kibbs is an amazing barber. The same with Richie. I'd never seen a blow dry like anyone can blow dry like Richie. He's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So me as a barber, to learn off all these guys and bring it back to my customers, I couldn't ask for it. It's been amazing.
Learn and teach.
Exactly.
And you know the funny thing about teaching is the more you teach, just the more that you learn.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I agree with that.
All right. So if we're talking about teaching, if someone wanted you to tutor them personally, how would they go about doing that?
At the minute, me teaching is quite a rarity to find the time to do it. I have this shop. I've got another shop in Upper Mill. I help out with my partner's shop, which she's got a Meridian Barber Shop. So my time is split between 3 shops. I've got, you know, beautiful children. So I do it, but very rarely. And when I do,
it costs you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
In the northern accent.
Yeah, it will. It'll fucking cost you. But you know, if I can find the time to do it, I will do. And it's got to, you know, I've got to want to do it, and that's something that when I first got into the industry, I was being pulled from pillar to post, and all these people were trying to jump on me to do things, and I kind of realised that, you know, I'm not really overly benefiting that much, giving me 200 quid to come and do this and that, when I can earn it being in the shop and satisfying my customers instead of always being off doing other things. And it took me a long time to realise that. And when I did, you know, that my bread and butter is my shops and my customers and customer satisfaction. Without all this, there is nothing. You know, you don't get paid thousands to do the show work, and you're very, very lucky if you do.
And he who is everywhere is nowhere.
Exactly. Don't be a busy fool. And it took me about 18 months to learn that.
I like that. Don't be a busy fool.
Don't be a busy fool.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so we have spoken about a hell of a lot, and these are all massive achievements that you've spoken about. That's why this interview is running on. So I want to know, what would you say that your biggest achievement to date is, Danny?
My biggest achievement to date is definitely meeting Adam and Joe Sloan. Without them, none of this would happen. You know, people look at me as a person and how well you could say I am doing. I wouldn't like to, you know, say that myself. People look at materialistic things that I've got, which don't really mean anything. And without them 2 guys, I wouldn't have any of it. And I would say my biggest achievement to date was probably being asked to be one of the main judges alongside Chris Foster and Foxy from the Bomb Squad to judge the men's judge HJ Men Barber of the Year. When I got that email about that, mate, I literally had a tear in my eye. I was like, wow, I've literally come from an idea with 1 chair, no staff, doing haircuts started at like £6-7 to this. You know, it is really humbling, all of it. And you know, I am a humble person. I might not come across that in some ways, but like what I say, every person has a story. You know, I have a story. And that was a massive achievement for me. You know, I was in awe of that. It was amazing. I've stood next to Foxy and Chris Foster, who I've looked up to from the beginning of time in barbering.
It's been a long time and achieved
exactly,
a lot.
to now be stood next to him, and I achieved all that in what, 6 years? Madness.
Yeah. And the biggest, probably one of the biggest hairdressing mediums there is, which is the HJ.
HJ Men, I know, it is indeed. And you know, we're constantly doing work for them on stage all the time, which is just phenomenal. It really is. To be on their radar is a massive achievement. And go on, sorry.
Would you like to see any changes in the barbering industry? Because you seem very excited. I was just wondering if there was anything you would like to see change that you think could ultimately improve it.
Yeah, I mean, always develop yourself. Just don't keep looking at Instagram in some ways. Instagram is smoke and mirrors, all of it. It's paid likes, paid followers, edited pictures. Please don't base your career and your life on some of these people that you see, really. Stop looking up to you know, American barbers and look at the great talent that we've got over here in this country. I'm sick of hearing about all these amazing American barbers. Why not look at the likes of Kevin Lutchman, Alan Beek, you know, Respeak. We've got all these amazing people over here, Ryan Cullen, Josh LaMonica. These guys are phenomenal in their own rights. These guys in America are good, but they're doing haircuts on Puerto Rican guys who've got the most amazing hair in the world. The anatomy of the skull is totally different. The fades look fantastic. You know, you're cutting Paul's hair, who's covered in scars and hitting the head with a baseball bat a few times. He's going to look totally different than these guys that you're seeing all over Instagram. So yeah, it's just about self-development, believe in yourself. And at the end of the day, if you're not getting customers through the door, you can't be one of these so-called famous Instagram barbers, which is all just nonsense anyway, really.
And it's funny you should say that about looking to the American guys, because all the American superstars that I interview, they're looking at Alan Peake and looking at you and saying, again, going back to Chink, Famous' wingman and Famous himself, when I said, who's your inspiration? He's like, oh my God, Alan Peake and Respeak, how they do their hair so soft and the waves. And he's going, when I go back to Canada, I'm going to be changing my shit. I want to be doing this wavy.
It's amazing. It is, but I just think for these younger barbers who are coming fresh out of college, you know, they're completely sucked into this whole Instagram thing. And I see just, you know, people themselves have changed. You know, everyone now is stuck to a phone in their hand, and you know, if you just pull a little bit away from that, which I did, I'm not as mouthy or was on anyone's radar as I was 18 months ago. I've kind of took a step back and found me, who I am, me as a businessman, me of earning, you know, money and being a family man, and I needed that because it all happens too fast. And it completely wiped me out at the time. And I was like, I'm being pulled from here to this, to that. I'm on this stage and I'm doing this, and then I'm in Scotland, and then I'm in Ireland, and then I'm in Amsterdam, and then I'm doing these festivals. And without these shops, my amazing team of staff, I really wouldn't have it all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes, you know, in life, when you're in a situation, you can't see it for what it is. So if you feel like you're kind of trapped in a situation, sometimes you need to kind of step out of the box and then take 2 steps away from the box and take a holistic view.
Yeah, of course.
And then then you can better see where you are.
Yeah, I mean,
now that we said that, I actually need to do that when we finish this interview, Danny. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and if it wasn't for the likes of Joe Sloan, who I would class as literally one of my closest friends in the barbering industry, if it wasn't for the likes of Joe and Adam mentoring me and giving me advice and telling me to take a step back and find me as a barber, then I think my head would have fell off a long time ago. You know, because I was getting to the point where I was being, you know, like I did have a persona of, you know, no, and I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that, and telling people to F off all the time. And, you know, it's because I just felt like there was so much pressure on me, and I needed to step back and concentrate on, well, I've got all these regular customers who are coming in on a weekly basis. They're the main ones. They're the ones that I need to concentrate on. You know, make your customers happy and make the till ring, and the rest should all fall into place.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
In closing, is there any advice that you'd like to give to a young barber over and above what you've just discussed probably in the last 10 minutes, which I've seen countless nuggets, golden Danny Robinson nuggets there in closing?
I would probably say think outside the box. If you look at my photography work, it's different than anyone else's. I throw designer masks on people. I throw, you know, Stone Island jackets on people and stuff like that. So it would just be to think outside the box, you know, be creative. Don't copy other people. Be you. Alan Peake is the best at being Alan Peake. Ryan Cullen's the best at being Ryan Cullen. I'm the best at being me. Josh LaMonica's the best at being himself. Be you. Don't copy someone else, because they're the best at being them. And that's the best thing that I can advise you.
Danny Robinson, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
There's been hundreds of nuggets in there. Guys, if you've watched this 40-odd minute interview, I would strongly suggest that you go get a pad and pen and take down some of these points and stick to them, and you can follow Danny's success. A young man who came from a single parent mother at 15, so you can imagine the trials and tribulations that he's been through, and he's overcome them all. So there must be tons of words of wisdom, so take heed.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.